Chronicle of a Young Warrior. Chapter 4. It was unclear how much time had passed. Thachbalki slowly opened his eyes. He suddenly noticed an old monk with half-gray hair and beard standing about 10 jong away from him. Thachbalki asked, "Who are you, old monk?" The old monk remained where he stood. "I am none other than the monk Huianthon. Is there something you wish to instruct me on, old monk? Earlier, I was standing outside and saw you being thrown out, so I caught you." Thachbalki quickly sat up, stepped onto the ground, and grasped the old monk's hand. "So, it turns out you are my benefactor. I vow to remember your kindness for the rest of my life. There's no need for that. I only want to ask you one thing. Please, go ahead and ask old monk. I want to know how Phukharton Ya died." Thachbalki was startled. "Who are you, old monk?" "I am the elder brother of Phukharton Ya." Suddenly, Thachbalki knelt and bowed. "So, you are my uncle, whom I had no knowledge of." Huianthon the monk waved his hand. "Please rise and explain the cause of brother Phukhu's death to me." Thachbalki stood up and clasped his hands. "My master was forced to commit suicide not long ago by the order from the ruby gem divine staff of Huianthon Ya." Huianthon the monk's eyes filled with tears. "It is truly sorrowful for my junior brother." Thachbalki, deeply affected, asked, "Uncle, given this situation, what should we do about Huianthon Ya?" Huianthon the monk wiped his tears. "We monks must be patient and wait for the right moment to assess the situation before making any decisions." Thachbalki, growing impatient, responded, "Uncle, with all due respect, I think you are mistaken. In my opinion, you should gather the righteous martial artists in the Shaolin temple, train them thoroughly, and then march up to Thiautut to challenge the evil monk. Waiting for the right time could mean waiting forever." Huianthon the monk sighed. "What you say is very reasonable, but the rules of our sect have hindered us. Please don't blame me, it pains me deeply." Thachbalki, feeling compassionate, softened his tone. "Uncle, given this situation, have you heard about the matter concerning the beautiful vixen?" "Yes, I already have." "Do you know what the title of the vixen is?" "No, I am not aware of the title of that female demon." "In that case, we should first find out her name, and then we can plan accordingly. What do you think?" Huianthon the monk nodded. "It's better that way. Let's investigate her name, her martial arts, and then decide on our course of action." The monk Huianthon continued, "If we want to avenge Phukharton Ya, we must first find Dang Maton Ya." Thachbalki widened his eyes. "Dang Maton Ya is a senior member of the Shaolin temple?" "That's correct." "Uncle, where is Dang Maton Ya now?" The voice of Huianthon the monk became sorrowful. "Since the day our late master passed away, Dang Maton Ya left the Shaolin temple and has not been heard from since." Thachbalki, eager, said, "If heaven does not forsake me, I will find Dang Maton Ya one day, and I swear I will destroy Huianthon Ya to avenge my master." Huianthon the monk, deeply moved, replied, "I hope you accomplish everything, my young nephew. Now, we should part ways and meet again someday." As soon as he finished speaking, the elder monk leaped away and disappeared. Realizing that there was no reason to stay any longer in the Thiautut mountains, Thachbalki also set off immediately. He ran swiftly for nearly 100 miles until he reached a lush bamboo forest. Suddenly, Thachbalki noticed more than 20 people moving swiftly using their Lightfoot techniques. A thought flashed through his mind, and Thachbalki decided to move stealthily like a ghost to observe who these people were. After a short while, Thachbalki caught up with them and hid in the bushes within the forest. Looking closely, he saw an old monk who seemed very familiar. Recognizing the monk, Thachbalki silently exclaimed, "Huianthon Ya." Indeed, the old monk with the sinister face was none other than Huianthon Ya. Driven by curiosity, Fachbalki resolved to follow Mui Hinktonya to see where he was heading. With this in mind, Fachbalki used his extraordinary body technique to trail closely behind the group, staying just within sight. The group led by Mui Hinktonya continued on, unaware of his presence. Fachbalki, like a shadow, remained hidden behind them, maintaining a perfect distance. About half an hour later, the group reached a dense forest filled with lush green foliage and many rare and exotic plants. Through the trees, a magnificent palace, painted in red and gold, came into view. Though not large, the palace was incredibly ornate and splendid, with intricate and skillful carvings. As they were walking, Mui Hinktonya suddenly commanded, "We are almost there. Everyone, maintain strict decorum for my sake." The monks responded in unison, "We obey the orders of the sect leader." All the followers of the Shilin temple slowed their pace, forming neat and solemn rows. Overhearing this, Fachbalki was astonished. "Oh! Where is that wicked monk heading? Why would such a grand and splendid building be erected in the middle of this desolate forest?" The mystery deepened in Fachbalki's mind. Suddenly, he decided to move to the right, slipping into some thick undergrowth. Just as Fachbalki entered the dense foliage, one of the monks broke formation and headed in his direction. Fachbalki's heart raced. He thought the monk had discovered his presence and was coming to capture him. But the situation turned out differently. As Fachbalki anxiously prepared to defend himself, pressing closely into the bushes with his hands raised to his chest and his inner energy focused, the monk stopped. It turned out the monk had only come to relieve himself. Fachbalki couldn't help but chuckle to himself. Then, a plan began to form in his mind. He thought to himself, "Oh! What if I paralyze this wicked monk and disguise myself as him to infiltrate the group and find out what they're up to?" With that idea in mind, Fachbalki emerged from the dense undergrowth and swiftly moved towards the monk. His figure moved as quickly as a wisp of smoke, and in the blink of an eye, he was right in front of the monk. The monk was startled by the sudden appearance of someone so close to him. He opened his mouth wide, about to shout in alarm. But quicker than a flash, Fachbalki raised his hand to aim at one of the monk's critical acupoints and flicked a sharp burst of energy. A muffled thud echoed as the monk stood frozen like a bronze statue. Clearly, he had been paralyzed by Fachbalki's precise strike, rendering him completely immobile. Moving as silently as a ghost, Fachbalki grabbed the monk and dragged him into the thick undergrowth. He laid the monk down on the ground, where he remained motionless. Although paralyzed, the monk was still conscious, his eyes wide with fear as he stared at Fachbalki. In the monk's eyes, it seemed as though he was silently asking the young man, "Who are you, and what is the purpose behind your actions?" Without uttering a word, Fachbalki reached into his robe and pulled out a small packet of multicolored powder. Fachbalki carefully examined the monk's face, then applied the red powder to his own. Within moments, his appearance transformed, his face now an exact replica of the monk's. The real monk's eyes widened with a mixture of fear and hatred, his gaze almost bloodshot with fury. Without saying a word, Fachbalki stripped the monk of his robes and donned them himself. He also tied the monk's distinctive four-colored headscarf around his own head. Now, he looked exactly like the monk, indistinguishable even to the keenest eyes. Understanding Fachbalki's plan, the monk was filled with rage but was powerless to do anything but lie there in silent frustration. Finished with his disguise, Fachbalki smirked down at the helpless monk. "You can stay here and keep the bugs company while I borrow this disguise to follow that wicked Mui Hinktonya and see what he's up to." With that, Fachbalki swiftly rejoined the group outside. He now carried himself with the same composed demeanor as the monk, blending in perfectly with the others. Fachbalki quickly took his place among the ranks of the other monks, blending in seamlessly. He glanced toward Mui Hinktonya, who was standing on the glistening jade steps of the ornate mansion, deep in conversation with a hunchbacked man. From his position, Thach Baoqi could only watch as Mui Hink Tonya reached into his robe and produced a gold ingot, roughly 10 taels in weight. The sight of the gold sparked Thach Baoqi's curiosity even more. Mui Hink Tonya handed the gold to the hunchbacked man, who accepted it with a sly grin and a series of cackling laughs before retreating into the lavish mansion. As the hunchback disappeared inside, Mui Hink Tonya remained on the steps, his expression one of cold calculation as he waited. Thach Baoqi, now firmly embedded within the group of monks, kept a close eye on the situation, trying to discern what the next move would be and what secrets this mysterious mansion held. Thach Baoqi whispered to himself, so the evil monk bribed the hunchbacked man for something. He stood still, calmly observing Mui Hink Tonya's every move. However, Thach Baoqi had to conceal the intense gleam in his eyes to avoid being detected by the Shaolin monks and risking his mission. Soon, the hunchbacked man came out again. Though the exchange with Mui Hink Tonya was unclear, the monk was visibly pleased and waved his wide sleeve, commanding, "You may enter." The monks responded in unison, "We obey the command," and then lined up and proceeded into the mansion. Thach Baoqi, maintaining his disguise, quietly followed the monks into the grand mansion. As Thach Baoqi passed by the hunchbacked man, he cast a glance at him to express his disdain. Strangely, the hunchbacked man did not show any sign of anger but instead looked at Thach Baoqi with a worried expression, as if concerned for him. This gesture did not escape Thach Baoqi's notice, leaving him puzzled and uneasy. But before Thach Baoqi could think further, everyone had already entered inside. There, 2 maids dressed in deep blue were waiting, their faces blooming with smiles like flowers. The 19 monks all lowered their heads, not daring to look at the captivating beauty of the 2 maids. Only Mui Hink Tonya, with a lecherous grin, kept his eyes fixated on the maid's bosom on his left, then slowly moved down her body. His gaze finally lingered with intense fixation on a particular spot. One of the maids smiled mysteriously and said, "Please, esteemed guests, follow us to the inner chambers to discuss matters. Please come with us." The 2 maids gracefully led the way, their movements resembling 2 large blue butterflies fluttering. Upon entering the courtyard of the magnificent mansion, Thach Baoqi carefully observed the mysterious interior of the building. A beautiful woman with a captivating, enchanting face waved her hand and said, "Your duties are completed. So step outside and wait for me for a while." The young women responded with a loud, "Yes, we will comply," and exited the room. Now, only 2 people remained in the room, Mui Hink Tonya and the woman with the alluring face. The enticing beauty suddenly turned to take the hand of the sect leader and spoke in a seductive voice, "Let's go, and quickly." As she spoke, she pulled Mui Hink Tonya into a secret door. Inside was a dark path leading to a stone chamber about 30 jong wide. In the stone chamber, there was a prepared ivory bed with a mattress laid out, along with 2 embroidered pillows featuring dragons and phoenixes. On the ground, there was a meditation cushion to avoid dust and sand while kneeling. Above, there was light coming from 4 openings, leaving one unsure whether they were above ground or in a tunnel. At that time, the monks of Shaolin Temple and Thach Baoqi lay motionless on the ground. Nearby, a pile of long decayed bones, totaling over 200, emitted an extremely unpleasant and foul smell. It was unclear who the people that had turned into the gigantic pile of bones were, and why they were left to rot in that place. The cold, gloomy atmosphere in the stone chamber felt no different from the underworld, causing anyone who entered to shiver with fear. The beautiful woman pressed a button near the bed and closed the secret door. As soon as the door was shut, Mui Hink Tonya lunged forward and grabbed the beautiful woman into his arms, his hands moving incessantly. The woman with the alluring face writhed like a hungry tigress. She flaunted her perfect figure before the eyes of the elder sect leader, which were bloodshot with long-held desire. Although Thachbalki was immobilized, he remained as clear-headed as ever. Seeing the shocking scene unfolding between the Muihinktonya and the beautiful woman, he was taken aback and thought to himself, so the old villain came here to commit disgraceful acts with this wanton female. The monks were also shaken upon witnessing their sect leader and the beautiful woman in such a situation. After a moment, the beautiful woman said to Muihinktonya, "Oh dear. Why the rush? Wouldn't it be better if we went up there?" Muihinktonya chuckled, "Ah. I almost forgot about that." As he spoke, Muihinktonya let out a grunt and lifted the beautiful woman carrying her in both arms, while rushing towards the bed. The silk canopy draped over the bed. The bed was adorned with brocade. The light was dim. The entire scene created a revelry that tilted the heavens and shifted the earth between the 1,000-year-old fox spirit transformed into a stunning beauty and the wicked, lecherous old monk. Then a storm of wind and rain would commence. The ivory bed stirred restlessly. The velvet curtain fluttered. The laughter echoed like that of a fox. All the chaotic sounds formed an unprecedented symphony in this mortal realm. The monks looked on at the unfolding scene, furious to the point of shedding tears. Some, with sincere devotion to the righteous path and compassionate hearts, bowed their heads to the ground, not daring to glance at the swaying curtain. For although both had already vanished behind it, the curtain was a cruel image to envision. Only now did the monks awaken from their nightmare. They never expected that this esteemed sect leader could act so despicably. There were also a few monks whose cultivation was still too shallow, their worldly thoughts not yet faded, and upon witnessing this scene, their souls became dizzy and tense. At that moment, Thachbalki felt a surging tide of hatred boiling within. The young man stared wide-eyed at the curtain obscuring the figures of Muihinktonya and the beautiful woman, not blinking at all. A thought suddenly flashed through Thachbalki's mind. "Ah, so this female demon is the culprit behind my master's assassination, and no one else." Immediately, Thachbalki concentrated his energy to unblock the acupoints that were being sealed. His intention was that once he freed the acupoints, he would rush to kill Muihinktonya along with that female demon. However, the technique of the beautiful woman was extraordinarily powerful. Thachbalki had circulated his inner strength 36 times but still could not unblock the sealed acupoints. He felt anxious. The method to unblock the acupoints had become ineffective. What kind of magic had the beautiful vixen used? Now, what should he do to escape? If he delayed, the consequences would be unimaginable. Thachbalki's heart felt like it was on fire, his plans were failing, and instead, he was about to bring disaster upon himself. At that moment, the stormy confrontation between Muihinktonya and the beautiful woman had just come to an end. The two returned to their previous state. The beautiful woman took the hand of Muihinktonya and dragged him from the bed. The velvet curtain slowly lifted. The alluring beauty coyly said, "Now the energies of yin and yang have harmonized. I must cultivate my power lest it be too late and lose its effectiveness. What do you think, my love?" Muihinktonya caressed the smooth, velvety back of the beautiful woman and replied, "Yes. You should focus on your cultivation. I will wait here until you succeed. For now, let's restrain 10 of them, just leave 9 behind." The beautiful woman nodded, "That's right." Immediately, another secret door opened. The beautiful woman used her internal energy to push 10 of the monks inside and then closed the door. Now only 9 remained. Suddenly, Muihinktonya grabbed the arm of one monk who lay motionless due to being paralyzed, pulling him in. The beautiful woman smiled slyly, holding on to that monk. First of all, the woman pushed the old monk to lie on the round pillow near the foot of the bed. Next the beautiful woman used her internal energy to gently rub her palms all over the monk's body for a long while. How terrifying! Upon closer inspection, it was evident that the monk's body was gradually drying up, his skin wrinkling. Before long, only a bare white skeleton was left exposed on the ground. The sight of the skeleton was horrifying. Meanwhile, the pink skin of the beautiful woman appeared even more radiant than before. She resembled a flower that had just caught the morning dew. Above her head, a faint mist enveloped an area of about a half jong, the cold penetrating to the bone. The life pearl worn on the chest of this alluring beauty shone even brighter, radiating a cold, dazzling aura. Fachbauke, lying far away, looked over and clearly saw the situation unfolding before him. He was secretly horrified by the way this woman practiced her martial arts. Fachbauke suddenly realized that this female demon was the one who had caused countless tragedies for the Shaolin monks. Just as his horrified thoughts were not yet over, the beautiful woman let go of the skeleton. She let out a series of chilling laughs. Fachbauke hurriedly tried to gather his energy, but strangely, he could no longer control it. His heart trembled as he could not understand what kind of sinister technique the beautiful woman had used to immobilize him so completely. Unconsciously, Fachbauke thought to himself, "My life is over." At that moment, Mui Hinkton Ya captured another monk and brought him to the beautiful vixen. She immediately pounced on this monk, using the same method as before. In an instant, the monk turned into a pile of white bones. Then came the third, fourth, fifth, and sixth victims, until only Fachbauke remained. Death had appeared before him, filling him with extreme terror. Just then the beautiful woman was about to speak, but the old man quickly said, "My dear, I want to ask you something, are you willing?" The beautiful vixen asked, "What does my beloved want to say?" "Earlier today, I fought with a young man but couldn't defeat him, which left me extremely frustrated. I want you to teach me how to cultivate my skills." "Do you mean you want to use my yin and yang energy to enhance your power?" "Exactly." "Then that's very good. Please sit cross-legged, and I will teach you." Mui Hinkton Ya immediately obeyed and sat cross-legged in front of the beautiful woman. The four palms joined together. The two began to channel their yin and yang energies. The opportunity of 1,000 years had arrived. Fachbauke dared not delay and hurriedly activated his internal power. Unfortunately, he channeled his energy as before, and Fachbauke felt boundless despair. Suddenly, he heard two dry thuds. Instantly, all the acupoints in Fachbauke's body were released. Indeed, it was strange, who had secretly opened his pressure points. Without needing to think long, Fachbauke quickly sprang to his feet and glanced around. There was absolutely no one else in sight. Mui Hinkton Ya and the beautiful woman were still practicing their yin and yang energy on the bed. The woman was like a gigantic, exquisite white flower, captivating the heart. Fachbauke shouted loudly, "Wicked monk Mui Hink, you must pay for your crimes quickly." The young man's palm strikes sent two waves of energy rushing toward Mui Hinkton Ya, heavy as a mountain. At that moment, Mui Hinkton Ya had just completed his technique and stood up abruptly. However, no matter what, the old monk couldn't react in time, and the palm strikes were already close to him. Bang! The old evil monk let out a tragic scream, his whole body flying out and falling unconscious. The beautiful vixen sprang up and shouted, "Who are you, brat?" Her two white, jade-like palms also moved to attack Fachbauke. Fachbauke turned around and met her palm strikes with his own. Immediately, a tremendous battle broke out in the secret chamber. At this moment, Mui Hinkton Ya had just regained consciousness, stood up, shook himself, and shouted, "Who are you?" Fachbauke took a few steps back and quietly brushed off his hand, revealing a stunningly beautiful face. The beautiful vixen, upon seeing the true face of Fachbauke, gasped and stared at him in astonishment. In her gaze, there was an extraordinary, intense light mixed with infatuation for the handsome appearance of the young hero. Muihin Tonya spoke in a deep voice, "Little demon, what do you plan to do now? To take your life in revenge for my master?" Immediately, he unleashed a powerful palm strike aimed directly at the wicked monk, charging forward like a landslide. But at the same moment, the beautiful vixen also shouted sharply, "Do not show him any mercy." A chilling gust, as cold as wind from hell, surged toward Thachbauke. Startled, Thachbauke withdrew his palm and leaped aside to evade. Muihin Tonya bellowed, "Be sure to kill this little devil." Instantly, a fierce battle erupted between Thachbauke and his two highly skilled opponents. Chapter 5. The situation was extremely perilous for Thachbauke. Suddenly, a voice shouted, "Stop right there!" At that moment, Muihin Tonya let out a horrified scream and leaped away. The beautiful vixen cried out sharply, "So, it's you?" Following her shout, she swiftly darted outside in search of the mysterious person. Muihin Tonya also got up, terrified, and chased after the beautiful vixen. Now, only Thachbauke remained in the secret chamber. He stood there bewildered, unsure of what to do, when suddenly an old, strange man appeared, grabbed him, and lifted him onto his shoulder. The old man then dashed outside, using his lightness skill to turn and cross over the Drunken Moon Pavilion bridge. Finally, the old man stopped in a secluded grove and placed Thachbauke down on the ground. Thachbauke scanned his surroundings and softly exclaimed, "So, it's you." It turned out that the old man was the hunchback gatekeeper of the Drunken Moon Pavilion, where the beautiful vixen resided. The old man chuckled, "Indeed, it's me. What is your name, esteemed elder?" "The name of this old man has long been forgotten, young hero." "Why do you need to know?" The sadness in the hunchbacked old man's voice affected Thachbauke as well. After a moment of contemplation, he asked, "Earlier, which technique did you use to release my acupoints?" The hunchbacked old man looked surprised. "What do you mean, young hero? Did I release your acupoints earlier?" "Indeed, just as I was about to fall victim to that demoness's dark arts, a gust of force shot in from the outside." "Wasn't that you?" The hunchbacked old man looked even more astonished. "You must be mistaken, young hero. I never used any technique to release your acupoints." "Could it be that?" Thachbauke was stunned. Strange. How could something so bizarre happen? Who was the person that used their technique to release my acupoints earlier? Suddenly, at that very moment, Thachbauke heard a sound of movement not far in front of him. The hunchbacked old man noticed it too and, startled, quickly said, "It seems that young Fuan has arrived over there. Stay here and wait, young hero. I have some business to attend to." As soon as he finished speaking, the hunchbacked old man shot off like an arrow released from a bow. In the blink of an eye, the strange old man disappeared into the dense forest. Left alone, Thachbauke stood bewildered, unsure of what to do next. Suddenly, a figure appeared from the other side, rushing toward Thachbauke as swiftly as lightning. The figure was moving pretty quickly that it was only less than about 20 jong away from him. He had no choice but to stand still and wait, silently channeling 80% of his internal power into his palms, ready to respond to any situation. Thachbauke knew well that this place was still within the territory of the people from Drunken Moon Pavilion, so the person approaching was certainly a formidable master of the dark arts. In a flash, the figure landed in front of Thachbauke. He glanced at the person and felt his heart skip a beat. It was a stunningly beautiful young woman, dressed in a flowing, thin green silk dress that fluttered in the wind like a celestial being descending to earth. Thachbauke immediately realized that this young woman must be Fuan, whom the hunchbacked old man had mentioned earlier. As the green-robed maiden landed and caught sight of Thachbauke's handsome face, she was equally stunned. The two stood staring at each other for a moment. After a while, the green-robed maiden spoke first. "Who might you be?" Thach Baoqi's heart was pounding. If he revealed his true identity to the green-robed maiden, the consequences could be very severe. So, Thach Baoqi responded with a lie. "I am just an unknown wanderer, someone you need not concern yourself with." "But may I ask who you are?" The green-robed maiden quickly replied, "My name is Fuang. I am a maidservant in the Drunken Moon Pavilion." Thach Baoqi was deeply shaken to learn that the young woman was indeed Fuang, just as he had suspected. She was a disciple of the beautiful vixen. Despite this, Thach Baoqi maintained a calm demeanor, appearing unaffected. He looked at her with gentle, unassuming eyes, careful not to reveal any of his martial skills. At that moment, Fuang asked, "May I inquire if you have come here on some important matter?" A bit flustered, Thach Baoqi said, "I am just a wanderer. I happened to come here by chance and unexpectedly met you. There is no important matter at hand." Fuang did not seem suspicious. Instead, she looked at Thach Baoqi with a tender gaze that never blinked, and her cheeks suddenly flushed like ripe cherries. Fuang's charming demeanor made Thach Baoqi feel awkward and embarrassed. He could only return her gaze with his eyes, unable to say another word. Fuang was no better off. She gave a sweet, floral smile and then slightly lowered her head, showing signs of shyness. A peculiar feeling subtly crept into the hearts of the young couple. After a moment, Fuang asked, "Why do you look at me so intently?" Thach Baoqi hesitated, then fell silent. Fuang pressed further, "Hey! Why aren't you answering? Do you look down on me?" After speaking, Fuang seemed to take a step away. Thach Baoqi, panicked, called out, "Hey! Lady!" Fuang stopped and smiled. Thach Baoqi realized that Fuang was teasing him, and his face turned red. Suddenly, at that moment, a strong gust of wind approached. Thach Baoqi, alarmed, was about to run, fearing that Mui Hink Tonya might be returning to find him. However, he stopped, understanding that fleeing would reveal his presence to Fuang. Thus, Thach Baoqi remained where he was, facing the direction of the approaching wind. Fuang also turned her attention to that direction. In the blink of an eye, she recognized the figure emerging from the dense foliage, none other than the hunchbacked old man Thach Baoqi had seen earlier. Thach Baoqi thought to himself, "Ah! The hunchbacked old man is here." While the old man seemed to ignore Thach Baoqi and focused solely on Fuang, he gasped and said, "I've been searching for you, and I'm out of breath." Fuang furrowed her brows. "You were looking for me?" The hunchbacked old man nodded slightly, "Indeed." Fuang, looking anxious, asked, "What is it that you need to tell me?" The old man's face showed extreme urgency. "I have an urgent message for you." Fuang's eyes widened. "An urgent message? What is it?" The mistress was suddenly attacked by an old demon while she was practicing her skills, and she nearly lost her life. She has sent a command for you and the swordsman Mando to find and capture the culprit. Fuang was startled. "Hunchbacked old man, is this really true?" The old man nodded. "I never lie to you." Fuang, looking perplexed, said, "This is strange. The Drunken Moon Pavilion has always been a heavily guarded forbidden place where no one has ever dared to set foot. How could an old demon manage to infiltrate and attempt to harm the mistress? He must be an incredibly audacious person with supreme martial skills." After a moment of silence, she asked the old man, "Hunchbacked old man, how did this happen?" The old man replied, "The incident took place in the mistress's stone chamber. I don't know the details, but I do know that the mistress is currently in hot pursuit of the old demon." Fuang's emotions grew more urgent. She glanced at Thach Baoqi, then looked back at the hunchbacked old man, her voice filled with urgency. "Then I must go find the mistress immediately. I'll return shortly." Her final words were slightly louder, seemingly meant as a message for Thachbauke. Understanding, Thachbauke looked at her as if silently promising they would meet again soon. Feeling reassured, Fuan gave Thachbauke a gentle smile before swiftly leaping away like a flash of lightning. The words of Dang Matonya left Thachbauke stunned. "Elder, so the blood pearl soul contains martial arts secrets?" "That's correct. From what I know, Fihomiyung currently possesses a pearl called the Life Pearl." "Elder, what kind of martial arts is Fihomiyung currently practicing?" "It's the 99 dark art." "Indeed. At present Fihomiyung needs to absorb the essence of 99 virgin boys to fully master that martial art." Thachbauke's expression darkened. "Elder, when will she complete this dark art?" Thachbauke hesitated. "If she succeeds, it will be disastrous for the martial world." "Elder, is there any way to stop her?" "The only way is to gather all 6 blood soul pearls and use them to master a supreme martial technique to have any hope of defeating the 99 dark art. You must quickly locate the whereabouts of the 6 pearls, gather them so you can practice and master the technique in time." Thachbauke's spirit surged with determination. "Though I may be of modest abilities, I will do everything in my power to accomplish this task." Dang Matonya responded gravely. "Your words are full of resolve, young hero. Act quickly to stop the demonic vixen and avenge Senior Futter Tonya." Hearing the mention of Futter Tonya, Thachbauke's heart burned with fierce hatred. It was his unwavering resolve to eventually tear Muihink Tonya to pieces to avenge his master. No longer hesitating, Thachbauke took hold of the blood pearl soul box, feeling a powerful surge of emotion. "I humbly accept your guidance, Elder. May I ask where the 6 blood soul pearls might be located?" The old man replied, "I do not know the whereabouts of the other 5 pearls, only that Fihomiyung has claimed one. Time is of the essence, young hero. We must part ways now." Thachbauke bowed. "I will follow your orders, Elder. Please keep an eye on Muihink Tonjia's movements." As Dang Matonya was about to leave, he suddenly noticed something, pointed towards a large tree branch, and shouted, "Who's spying there?" Immediately, 2 strong gusts of wind swept through the branches, causing 2 heavy objects to fall to the ground. Upon closer inspection, they were 2 skilled fighters dressed entirely in black, with winged eagle and white cloud embroidered on their chests. As soon as they landed, they attempted to flee. Dang Matonya roared like thunder, "Stop!" The 2 fighters froze at the command. Thachbauke asked, "Elder, who are these men?" "One of them is from Divine Eagle Fortress, and the other is from White Cloud Fortress," replied Dang Matonya. At that moment, the 2 men suddenly tried to flee, but with 2 sharp, dry sounds, both fell dead on the ground. The old man had just used his exceptional martial arts to kill the 2 skilled fighters. After finishing them off, Dang Matonya swiftly disappeared. Thachbauke was about to take a different path when suddenly, a figure jumped down from a tree, blocking his way. Startled, Thachbauke demanded, "Who are you?" The other person coldly replied, "True Winyat Kim." It was clear that True Winyat Kim had witnessed everything. Thachbauke muttered to himself, "If I let this man live, it could be very dangerous for Dang Matonya." He spoke in a deep voice, "What is your purpose here?" "Hand over the blood pearl soul box to me," True Winyat Kim demanded. Thachbauke's eyes widened, "Don't be insane. Today, you must die." True Winyat Kim turned around and shouted, "Where are the rest of you? Show yourselves." Immediately, 4 skilled fighters dressed in black leaped into the arena, surrounding Thachbauke in the center. Thachbauke quickly realized, "If I don't deal with them today, tomorrow's disaster will be much worse." Without saying a word, Thatch Balki unleashed his twin palms, attacking the two fighters on his left. Bam! Bam! The two fighters, unable to dodge in time, fell dead on the ground. Trunwinyat Kim, stunned and horrified, hesitated for a moment before drawing his sword and shouting, "Attack him!" The remaining two fighters roared and moved into attack from both sides. "Fall where you stand!" Bam! Bam! Immediately, the two combatants were struck by the powerful forces of Thatch Balki, soaring high and then falling, their souls entering the gates of the underworld. This event caused Trunwinyat Kim to be extremely terrified, filled with indescribable hatred, and he shouted like thunder, "Little demon, pay with your life quickly!" The left palm of Trunwinyat Kim unleashed a force as heavy as a landslide. Thatch Balki countered with his palm, resulting in a thunderous explosion. Trunwinyat Kim's body flew out forjong and fell back down, while Thatch Balki also spat out a drop of blood. He struggled to gather his energy to terminate Trunwinyat Kim's life, just as the old man was also launching himself to escape. In an instant, the old man had vanished. Thatch Balki was still bewildered when he suddenly heard a bass voice, "He's already far away, there's no point in looking for him any longer, young hero." Thatch Balki scanned the area but couldn't see anyone, feeling uneasy. "Who are you? Why don't you show yourself?" "I am Minnu. Because of the divide between the living and the dead, I cannot fully manifest. I would like to meet Minnu at least once, is that possible? Do you truly wish to meet her?" "Very much so." "Then, watch this." Immediately, a sudden force struck a pressure point on Thatch Balki's body, rendering him immobile. After that, he lost consciousness entirely. When he finally opened his eyes, he saw before him a woman wearing paper money and silver offerings, radiating a heavy aura of the underworld. Thatch Balki, shaken and trembling, asked, "Are you Minnu?" "That's correct. Why has Lady Minnu brought me here?" "To give you the 9-cycle restore soul pills for protection in the future." Minnu extended a bright white jade bottle towards Thatch Balki. He hesitated, then declined, "I've never had any acquaintance or favor with you, Lady Minnu. How could I dare accept this? It's because I'm fulfilling my master's mission. Please, do not refuse, young hero." Seeing that refusal was difficult, Thatch Balki accepted. "I will accept, but may I ask if there are any conditions?" "There are no conditions at all.